What's up YouTube, it's JackalGoldKick, and in this video I'm going to talk about that time that I used to be obsessed with creepypastas. So this is something that was on my mind today, and I wanted to talk about it because it's something from my life that I used to be obsessed with and I had a huge fascination with. And if creepypasta addiction was a real thing, I definitely had it. So I can't remember the age I was, but I do know that when I used to be obsessed with creepypastas, it was in my kid and teen years. And if you don't know what creepypastas are, they're basically fictional horror stories made by people online. So that's basically where they were created, is on the internet. They still exist and they're still being made, and that's where they came from. And people basically made these fictional horror stories and they put them online. So that's basically what creepypastas are. There's a whole website. I don't know the whole name, but there's like a creepypasta website with tons of fictional horror stories on there made by people, and that's what they are. They also got big by a lot of YouTubers reading them and doing narration of them as well. So I'm going to tell you about my creepypasta phase, and I'm going to tell you about how I got introduced to them. So how I got introduced to creepypastas was, this was in my kid and teen years. Like I said, I can't remember how old I was, but there was somebody I knew on Xbox, and they showed me a video which is basically some ordinary gamers playing Sonic.exe, and that was my first introduction to creepypastas. Never heard of them before that video. And that was my first introduction to them. It was in my kid and teen years. And ever since I watched that video, I just became obsessed, fascinated, and just all about creepypastas. It was insane how much I was obsessed with this stuff. It was like crack. It was like an addiction. I was so just fascinated with creepypastas. I could not get enough of them. And I honestly miss it because I found creepypastas very interesting. And they're another hobby that I really like, you know? I mean, there's even a character on my channel that was created from my obsession of creepypastas. That's how much I was into them. I even made a character. A character exists on my channel, Dog the Creepypasta King. That character exists on my channel because he developed from my obsession with creepypastas. You know, that's how much I was into this stuff, that I even tried to bring it into life with a character. I was so into creepypastas, and I miss that. I miss that obsession, and I miss that phase I had in my kid and teen years. So I'm going to talk about it basically. So yeah, how I found creepypastas, like I said, was that Sonic.exe video by Somewhere Near Gamers. And at the time, you know how young I was, I found that video pretty scary. You know, Sonic.exe was pretty creepy. And ever since I saw that Sonic.exe gameplay video by Somewhere Near Gamers, ever since then, that's when the obsession and fascination stage started for me with creepypastas. And ever since then, my whole life revolved around creepypastas 24/7, every single day. And that creepypasta obsession phase in my kid and teen years, I was all about creepypastas. I would listen to story after story after story. I would watch fan films of creepypasta stuff on YouTube. I would imagine myself in creepypasta scenarios. I even would write a rap. I even wrote a few rap songs mentioning creepypastas. Like I said, I made that character that came from creepypastas. I would talk to people about it. I would, you know, introduce people to creepypastas. You know, my whole life revolved around creepypastas, and I was so obsessed and fascinated with them. I was fascinated with creepypastas and the characters and stories and worlds they would create and they would write. And I just found them so fascinating and such interesting things. And I absolutely loved them. They were great. I would say some of the creepypastas I really liked from my time when I was obsessed with them. I liked Sonic.exe. I liked Tiki Toby. Another one I liked was... I was so obsessed with them, you know. But another one I liked, Baraska, was pretty cool. I believe that's one as well. I liked The Smiling Man. That was another good one as well. I liked The Rake. That was another good one as well. You know, there's so many out there, but those are just a few. But there was many, many more. But I was so obsessed and fascinated with creepypastas. I could not get enough of them. Like I said, in that obsession phase I had in my kid and teen years, I was so obsessed with them. Every single day, 24/7, revolved around creepypastas. You know, whether I was listening to story after story after story, I was watching fan film after fan film after fan film. I would imagine myself in creepypasta scenarios. I even made a character based off of it. I even did a few tracks back in the day mentioning creepypastas. I was so fascinated with it. And the thing about creepypastas is it felt like a completely different world. Whenever I would engage in creepypastas, I felt like I was in a completely different universe, in a completely different world, and I loved it. It was so addicting, it was so just rewarding, and I just absolutely loved it. It was such a fascinating thing for me in my kid and teen years, and I just loved it so goddamn much. I was so hooked, addicted, obsessed with creepypastas. I couldn't get enough of them. You know, no matter how many stories I listened to, no matter how many fan films I watched, no matter how much I talked about it. And I also used to think about it all the time, no matter how much I thought about it and talked about it to people. Everything that I did revolving around creepypastas, I just couldn't get enough. I loved them so goddamn much. You know, if creepypastas was a person, you know, probably would have married them. That's how obsessed I was with creepypastas at the time. You know, I was so into them. You know, they were so interesting. The characters and worlds and what they would create with creepypastas was so interesting and engaging to me. I just liked escaping into this alternate dimension and just alternate reality with these characters and stories and worlds. And they were just so fascinating to me, especially as a kid and a teen, in my kid and teen years, you know. Maybe another reason I found them so fascinating and found it just awesome to be in a different world is, you know, I talked about this person before on my channel, but, you know, my piece of shit father, Real Talk with Rocket Dog, you know, that piece of fucking shit. The time that I was obsessed with creepypastas, I was living with his piece of shit ass. So maybe that's another reason why I found him so fascinating and why I was also obsessed with him, is because it was a way for me to escape his piece of shit ass, you know what I mean? So maybe that's another reason. But yeah, I used to love creepypastas. I had a huge obsession phase with them, watching fan films, listening to story after story after story. I used to I would read some of the stories here and there, but with creepypastas, I usually listened to the stories on YouTube that narrators would read. I would watch fan films. I would pretend I was in the situation. I would pretend I was in creepypasta scenarios. I would always think about them. You know, even the times when I was playing video games, I would listen to creepypastas while playing the video games. That's how addicting it was. That's how obsessed I was with them. I could not get enough of them. I loved them so goddamn much, you know. And after my creepypasta phase, I can't remember when it ended, but, you know, after a while, my creepypasta obsession and fascination phase just ended. It went away. And I don't know why it did. These days, I'm not really obsessed or fascinated with creepypastas anymore, and it honestly sucks. I miss being obsessed and fascinated with creepypastas. I really do. You know, I really do, and I wish I could go back to those days. Maybe I could try getting into creepypastas again and seeing if I could get obsessed with them again, but yeah, I've dabbled with them here and there, but I don't have that obsessed phase anymore with creepypastas like I used to in my kid and teen years, and I miss it, because it was such a fascinating and interesting thing. You know, I love creepypastas so much to the point that if I could live in a different world or a different Earth or whatever planet that was called creepypasta, I would probably fucking live on that shit. You know, because with creepypastas, like I said, when I was so obsessed with them, my whole life, every single day, everything revolved around creepypastas. The fan films I would watch, the stories I would listen to, the things I would do, like creating a character based on creepypastas, fucking, you know, the Dog Creepypasta King. Some of the songs I made, I would mention creepypastas. I would talk about it to people. I would talk about it. I would think about it. My whole life revolved around it, and I absolutely loved it. And I missed that time, you know. So that's basically what I wanted to talk about in this video. Is basically, yeah, there was a time where I used to be obsessed with creepypastas, and I had a huge fascination with them. I just found them so interesting and just engaging, and they were just so exciting to me, and I miss it. And it just, when I used to be obsessed with creepypastas, it felt like I was in a different world. It felt like I was in a different reality. And I just loved it so much. I loved it so goddamn much. Like I said, if creepypastas was a woman or a person, I probably would marry it, you know, because that's how much I fucking loved creepypastas. I could not get enough of that fucking shit. It was like the best thing in life. I loved it so goddamn much. I was so damn obsessed with it. It was just amazing and great because of the stories and characters and worlds they would create. I absolutely just loved them. You know, I was so obsessed with them. Like I said, people, I know I've been repeating myself, but yeah, I was so obsessed with them, you know. And whenever I'd get on YouTube, you know, when I wasn't, whether I was listening to stories, I was so obsessed with watching fan films where, you know, just listening to creepypasta stories were not enough. I had to go on YouTube and I had to look up these creepypasta fan films. I had to see live action versions of these creepypasta stories, and I just, like I said, I could not get enough of this world. I used to fucking love creepypastas, you know. My whole life revolved around it. I miss it. I really do. And I don't know why I fell off of it, whereas nowadays I'm not obsessed with it anymore. So yeah, that's really what I wanted to talk about here. Basically, there was a time in my life where I used to be obsessed with creepypastas. And I definitely miss it, you know, I definitely miss it. And when you look at creepypastas, you know, they're still around, but, you know, I don't know if I could be wrong about this, but they don't seem to be as big as they used to be. Like, there used to be a time, especially when like there was Jeff the Killer and Slenderman and all that. There used to be a time when creepypastas were a huge thing. It was a big thing on the internet, and it kind of seems like creepypastas aren't the it thing anymore in terms of being like popular or, you know, that it thing right now. They still exist, but I don't know. They just don't seem to be as big as they used to be. But yeah, that's all I wanted to say about that.